Hello everyone. So today I'm going to teach you how to do this. Pretty cool, right? So before I even start teaching you this trick, I am going to point one thing out. You'll notice that I do this cut, and will be teaching this cut with my left hand, even though I'm right-handed. Now, as you may know, I do this to leave some of the finer slides and flourishes, such as the flicker, to my dominant right hand. Now, if you are left-handed or you simply want to learn this cut with your right hand, then there is a link in the upper left-hand corner of this screen or in the description box down below. Now, if you click that, it'll open up a new tab and it'll show you just the tutorial portion of this video. The only difference is that the screen will be flipped so that it'll appear that I'm teaching the trick with my right hand, so you can learn the cut with your right hand if that's the way you want to learn. So, that being said, let's get started. So here I'm just going to give you a brief overview just to give you an idea of how the trick is done. Now, first of all, I'd like you to note that whatever card is on the bottom of the pack to begin with is going to be the card that's shot from the deck. So in this case, it's the ace of spades. So if I do the cut, it's the ace that'll be launched. So now, as for the actual overview, I'm going to start off with the elevated mechanics grip. The index finger is going to be placed right next to the thumb, so the thumb can transfer the grip to the index finger. I can now hold the deck between my first and second fingers. I'm now going to twist the deck just like so, and what that's going to do is it's going to bevel this corner of the deck. I can now break apart the pack about halfway down with my thumb. Now I can pry this top packet away, pivoting off my index finger. I'm now going to rotate until these two packets are parallel to each other. I'm now going to use these two fingers to push this packet on top of my index finger. Note how my index finger stays between these two packets the entire time. It is not removed. Because of this, I can use it to pull away the ace of spades from the rest of the pack, pivot it off my middle finger, and then launch the card. I'm going to go into more detail about how to do this later in the tutorial. Okay, so now that you kind of have an idea of what you'll be doing, go ahead and grab a deck of cards if you're sitting there at home and see if you can follow along. I'll be doing it a lot slower this time, so it should be a lot easier to follow. So go ahead, pause the video, grab a deck, and we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to start off in the elevated mechanics grip. Now it looks just like this. If you can see how my fingers are arranged, I've got the index finger on top, the pinky on the bottom, two fingers on the side, thumb on the opposite side. Also take note of the distinct gap between the deck of cards and my palm. I'm holding the deck with my very fingertips. Now, this is very important because it is very hard to do this cut if you're not holding the cards with your fingertips. So the only alteration we're going to make to this grip is the thumb. We're just going to bring it down about 1/4 of an inch, just like so. So with this deck, you can actually see the halfway mark, and my thumb is just below that. So now that you're holding the deck properly, we're going to start off with the actual cut. So the index finger, the first step is to put it right next to the thumb, just like this. So you're going to release and then curl underneath the deck until you get to about this point right here. When you get here, you're going to extend and apply pressure to the side of the deck with really the back of your index finger. Now when you think you have enough pressure to grip it, you're going to release with your thumb. So now you're holding the deck between your first and second fingers. Alright, now that you're at this point, you're going to twist, and you're going to do this by bending your index finger and bringing your middle finger closer to you, and that will twist the packet like this. Now, if you've done this correctly, there should be at least somewhat of a bevel in this corner of the pack. So you're going to use your thumb and break away about the top half of the pack, so you can see that there's a break about halfway down the deck. Now, as you get more experience with this cut, you can even riffle down like this. That's what I do, but you don't have to do that. Breaking away directly about halfway down is just as effective. However you get your break, you're going to grip the top half of the deck between your thumb and your index finger. You may have to release with your middle finger, and you're going to pry this top portion away with your thumb. Alright, so you're rotating this and pivoting it around your index finger. You're going to continue to rotate until these two packets clear. So these two halves of the deck should be about parallel to each other. You're now holding the packets between your thumb, index finger, and middle fingers. At this point, I even have my pinky on this side of the deck, so that these cards don't fall out towards me. Okay, so the next step is to simply curl the index finger. I'm going to curl this, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring this packet lower, and it's also going to put this packet on top of my index finger. So when I do that, it's going to clear that knuckle, and I'm going to use these two fingers to push this packet on top, just like so. So take note that you do not take your index finger out of this gap between the two packets. It stays in. You're about to use it to outjog the ace of spades. Now, the ace of spades is now right here. Remember how it was at the beginning, at the bottom, at the beginning of the trick? It is now in the perfect position to be shot from the deck. At this point, you're going to use the fleshy part of your index finger. You're not going to use your nail, but you're going to make contact with that ace of spades. You're going to use this in combination with the weight of the top packet to outjog this card. Alright, so you're simply extending your index finger so that it's outjogged. As soon as you get to this point, you're simply going to move your index finger to the side, and it's going to pivot around your middle finger. At this point, the card is angled about 90 degrees from the rest of the deck. You are now ready to shoot the card, and I'll do that in the next section. Now, I realize if you're following along at home and you've just tried this for the first time, that you're probably playing a lovely game of 52 card pickup. And I realize that this trick is really hard. This is not an easy cut. But like any one-handed cut, this is going to take a lot of practice. I do recommend rewatching this portion of the video several times and getting the cut down fairly well before you start learning the shot. So now that we've got the cut down, let's go ahead and move to the shot. Alright guys, so now it's time for the part that makes the hot shot cut unique. And that's the literal ejection of one card from the deck all the way over into your other hand. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's really no good way to teach this part of the trick. The best way to learn the shot itself is from experience. You're going to learn it from experimenting, from messing around with it, and just from figuring out what works best for you. Now, what I can do is give you the general idea of how it's supposed to be done, in addition to some tips and recommendations based on my experience with the hot shot cut. Now, there are really two ways to practice the shot. First, you can take a card and simply place it in the deck just like this, so you can practice doing the shot by itself. Now, you can do that, but the way I recommend doing it is doing the one-handed cut every time you practice doing the shot. That way you can get used to doing both the cut and the shot together, and you don't have to take the extra step of combining the two even after you've practiced them both. Now, I'll start with the positioning of the card in the deck. Now, this is the positioning that works for me. It looks just like that. Now, this is going to be different for everybody, but the general rule that you want to follow is you're going to have this quarter of the card in the deck, okay? So I just want you to mess around with this and experiment and see what works for you. It could be right here, it could be right here. Just see what works. So now that you have your positioning figured out, the next step is to figure out where you're going to put your second finger on the card. Alright, so it's going to be anywhere along this edge. Now, it could be right here on the corner, it could be right here next to the deck. Again, for me, what works is putting them about halfway between the two. And that's just what gives me the best pop and the direction to my other hand. Now, the one thing that pretty much is the same, regardless of the person doing the shot, is the motion with which it's launched from the pack. And that motion is going to look something like this. It's going to look like wrapping your middle finger around the deck. Now, let me show you what I mean. When I'm going to do the shot, I'm going to apply pressure to this card, and that is going to build tension in the card. Now, when I'm ready to pop it out, I'm going to rapidly increase that tension in the motion of wrapping my middle finger around the deck. And that is going to pop the card out in the direction of my other hand, just like that. Now, I'm going to do this in slow motion in front of the camera here in just a second so you can get a better idea of how that's supposed to be done. Now, one final thought, even though it may seem obvious, I do want you to try to catch it every single time you practice the shot. Again, that's just so you don't have to go to the extra step of learning how to catch it even after you've mastered everything else. A few final thoughts before I wrap up. Now, I realize that some parts of this cut, such as this, can be really hard for some of you guys, especially those of you with really small hands. Now, if you think your hands are simply too small to do this cut, then I recommend going out and buying a bridge-sized deck. These cards are exactly the same length as a normal-sized deck. The only difference is they're a little bit thinner. That way it should be a lot easier to do things like this. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, you can check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/Cheerio703. Lastly, you can hit subscribe for more videos like this.